in Advent, we have December 8th, the Feast of the Immaculate Conception. We have Our Lady Guadalupe, and she is paving the way. What she's trying to do, I believe, and the church is trying to do for us, is saying, learn how to love Jesus with the heart of Mary. I pray often, like, Mary, give me the faith that you have. Give me the love with which you love Jesus. Give me the hope with which you had in Jesus. Because it is Mary's heart that leads us into this incarnational mystery.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us here on another episode of The Catholic Gentleman. We're so blessed that you've decided to spend some time with us. This is our exciting Christmas special. This is our Christmas episode. We actually haven't done one of these. We've talked about Christmas before, but never a special like this. We are your hosts. I'm John Heinen. We've got Devin Schadt, who's the executive director of Fathers St. Joseph. Devin, how are you doing today?
Sick, but good. I just made it back from Portland, Oregon, giving a talk at Men's Conference. Spent 6 hours in O'Hare Airport. Them just lying to us about our plane. Yeah. They said something about the lavatory, being busted. And I was like, hey, everybody can wear Depends. Give me a break.
That's right.
We'll get on that flight. I mean, anyway, I must have picked up something
Advent. There. Yeah. Oh, bummer.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. 6 hours. No, I did not do that. I am sorry that you did. But again, we are in the season of repentance and reflection on your past. If you don't know that, listen to our last episode that came out last week on Advent. But yeah, this is the Christmas episode. I was going to say pour your eggnog or your nightcap, but it's actually still Advent when this is coming out. So don't do that. Wait until
just have your eggnog without bourbon.
There it is. Just remove the bourbon unless you're lactose intolerant. So anyways, if you love what we're doing, we would love your support. Catholic Gentleman Plus is our inside membership program where we come out every single month with new sessions. This month, we're talking about the Rosary. We've got a couple guest experts, actually one this month and one next month, that are going to come out and talk about the Rosary for men. It's a great way to support us. We have 19 sessions, a bunch of books, daily saint quotes straight to your inbox. Again, we'd love that support. Head over to CatholicGentlemanPlus.com. Hope you like what we're doing. We love bringing this to you every single day. And finally, I just want to thank our show sponsor, Exodus 90. Exodus 90 is a great gift for men. They're doing great things to help transform the hearts and minds of men. We'll talk about that more later. So again, here we are. It's almost Christmas. We are a week away from Christmas. And if you're like me, you lived in the way of the world, right? You lived with Christmas was like the ultimate climax of like a season of celebration. It wasn't so much like a season of reflection and repentance and preparation for the second coming of Christ. And then Christmas was the beginning of this celebration. It was kind of the climax with a quick and fast letdown after that. And so we want to right that wrong. We want to fix it, as we've both been going through in our own lives, and we have been better understanding the church's teachings and better living them out year over year. We want to bring that to you guys. And as the title of the episode, How Catholics Celebrate Christmas Better Than Anyone, we want to prove to you that it's only the Catholic Church that truly celebrates Christmas as Christmas should be celebrated. And all the other seculars, if they knew how we celebrated Christmas, they'd want to join us. And so that's the call, that's the drive, that's what we're here to talk about. Devin, when you think about your past in Christmas growing up, was it similar to mine?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember, prior to Christmas, getting excited for the big day, the presents under the tree, wondering what's in there, in the packages, always hoping for the same thing, never getting it. Disappointment. Now, one Christmas, I finally got it. It was the equivalent of an Atari. Do you remember in television?
I do.
You're probably too young.
I don't. I remember Atari. I had Sega.
Man,
original
this was old
Sega,
guys, man.
Yeah.
Atari made a comeback a while back. So, but yeah,
true.
So I think though it was Christmas though, for whatever reason, left a melancholic stamp on my heart. And it was only till about, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, my wife really picked up on the fact that on Easter and Christmas, especially Christmas, I would get very depressed. And it was a reoccurring cycle, and she picked up on it. And maybe it was 15 years ago. And she realized that. And so then it led me into, okay, why? Why is Christmas, or was Christmas, kind of a depressing time, even though it's full of excitement and the Christmas carols and the movies and all of that? And I realized it was because it was empty. It was very shallow. And there was all this hype and hope toward a culmination that even if you got what you wanted, it never occurred. Like that hype, that hope for whatever that culmination was, it never occurred. And so, Huberman and others, that dopaminergic kind of peak trough kind of cycle, man, Christmas hits and it's like by noon, after gifts are open, it's like, it's over.
It's over. One of the largest Christmas trees in America, I can't remember if it's in Kansas City, Missouri, or somewhere around there, gets cut down on the 26th or 27th. Like there's a day that it is down. One of the largest Christmas tree displays is down. Yeah. And I mean, what a sinking feeling that is to everybody, that it's like, we're done, back on to the new year, wait another 364 days.
In my old neighborhood, there's these neighbors, they deck out their house with lights and all the super huge inflatable Christmas ornaments, lawn ornaments. And then, no joke, Christmas Day by noon, the Christmas tree is lifeless, laying out on the curb. It's next to all the snow that looks all gray and black from the fossil fuels from the cars. And I'm like, man, we have to look at that for the next 14 days or whatever it is that we're celebrating Christmas. It's like such a sad visual.
They took the Christmas tree out back and put it down. And I tell you,
boom.
And I enjoy Christmas movies. So the thing I'm about to say is not meant to dog on Christmas movies. I enjoy them. But if you watch Christmas movies too much, they just feed this sort of, build up. It's the from Thanksgiving until Christmas, right? We've got presents galore and building up presents and wrapped presents and Macy's Day Parade and all of these things that are just building up to this moment. And then, what do we do after that moment, and how backwards we have it? We find ourselves, I don't know if I found myself like Charlie Brown and Charlie Brown's Christmas, just screaming, what is Christmas all about? And so not really, I've never screamed that out loud.
You got issues, man.
Indeed. You know what's fascinating about that? I'm sorry, gear shift here. Linus is the one who comes out and gives is there another movie not on form.org that actually quotes like a Bible, a whole Bible section, really? Charlie Brown Christmas, where Linus comes out and quotes Luke, the second Luke, multiple verses straight. And he explains it. What's fascinating I find it fascinating, is Linus is was our second Pope, right? And isn't that interesting that Saint Linus, the second Pope,
he had something going on there, huh?
Yeah. Or the Spirit was using him one way or another. Anyways, so coming back.
That's code, man. Deep code.
I do. Exactly. That's why people listen. It's all the conspiracy theories of John Heinen.
You're so smart.
But it should be it is. I think it's great. And it should be a season of joy. And we need to understand what that season is. So I want to start with talking about how Christmas is Catholic in every way, shape, or form. I want to start with talking about just the name Christmas. And so for those of you who don't know, and most of you who do, it stands for Christ's Mass, right? It's Christmas. And that's what the world, whether the secular world realizes it or not, that's what they're building up to. They're building up to Christ's Mass, which is the birth and nativity of Christ on December 25th. Mm-hmm. And that's what we are here celebrating. And that's what we are here to celebrate. Even, and this is interesting, and I throw this out here, even the word Merry in Merry Christmas originally stood for peace and blessed. It didn't stand for this sort of joyful, happiness. And
wait,
even
say that again. Say that again.
So when you say Merry Christmas, like going back to the Christmas Carol, God rest ye merry gentlemen.
Nice.
Yeah, we'll keep on going. And that's why people listen to this. And so Mary actually stood for a sentence, blessedness or peacefulness, right? It didn't actually mean this sort of joyful, happiness and stuff. Now, there's nothing wrong with joyful and happiness, but originally, Merry Christmas meant for like this blessed, this peaceful Christ Mass that we were preparing for. In addition, Xmas, and I grew up with this all the way up until the recent year, thinking Xmas was somehow a derogatory term towards Christmas. It was removing Christ from Christmas. I bought into that notion, and I do believe there is an actual reality of that. But in looking into this research, actually Xmas, using it as Xmas, goes back to 1021 by Catholics, because it's Christos from the Greek, with the chi as X as the beginning of writing Christ in Greek. And so it was a way, when persecutions were upon them, for them to still celebrate Christmas, and writing Xmas, taking the chi from the Greek alphabet X. And we see chi going all the way back to the Roman time with the Cairo, where we've got the X and stuff. So there's a lot of this stuff, but I'll just leave it at right there and pass it over to you, is that Christmas is Christ's Mass. It is Catholic in its very essence and its very origins.
So what I love about what you're saying, and I think we could tease this out a little bit, is this isn't something that we've just come up with in the last 100 years, that Christmas means Christ's Mass. Do you have any historical underpinnings of that? Because from what I understand, as early as 300, somewhere in there, that term was being used specifically in that way. Is that correct? Am I getting that right?
That's correct. Yeah, you are correct. And actually, so that's a great point. And we get this a lot, and I'm glad that we're talking about this, because I do want to bring this up, is this notion that Christmas was a co-opting of a pagan holiday, right? This the sun god. It was the unconquered sun god, right? Which was celebrated in the Roman Empire on December 25th. Now, like you were saying, Christmas in its language was codified in the 3rd century by the church, or the 4th century by the church. But we actually have the celebration of the nativity of our Lord, spoken of like that, the birth of Christ, going back 100 years before the Roman emperor declared in 297 this sun god pagan feast. So 100 years before, this is a good timeline thing here, 100 years before, we had Christians and Catholics writing about celebrating the nativity of the Lord on the 25th of December. 100 years later, thereabouts, we have the Roman emperor in 297 talking about this pagan holiday of the unconquered sun god that was declared on December 25th. And then the church, after that, in a council, declared it as Christmas. And so while the church declared it afterwards, we have writings spoken of over 100 decades and decades and decades before, 100 years before the Roman emperor ever did that. And so to say that it is a co-opting of a pagan feast day is a festival is actually wrong. But I also want to say something here too. We're not against co-opting pagan feast days. We shouldn't be ashamed. Right. The church takes that which is good, right? St. Augustine, I believe, said, despoil the Egyptians and keep that which is true. Yeah. And so we're okay with that. But these memes that you see everywhere and these things that we are getting attacked and just saying, it's really of pagan roots, is actually false, historically false. So anyways, that was long.
We just did an episode on that with Halloween, dispelling that myth as well. And like you said, like I think Patrick did it with the Druids, we see it all the time. In fact, the very, oh my gosh, what's the column that they killed St. Paul at that's in Rome? The Romans brought that from Egypt, and now the church has it.
And St. Peter's, yes.
Obelisk?
The obelisk? Yeah.
Am I getting that right? I don't know. But yeah, so the point is that God is a master at taking. So at the very basis, this is a law, if you will, I don't mean like a law we follow, but kind of a spiritual law, if you will. Basically, Satan can create nothing of his own.
Yeah.
He depends solely on the goodness of creation to carry out his diabolical plan. So he's a parasite, and a parasite sucks its energy and its life off of the goodness of something else, a mosquito off the human body, whatever you want to say, a leech, for the blood of a human being. That said, there's all this goodness in, say, Egyptian culture. There's all this goodness in even Druid culture and things like that. Roman culture. God retains the good, but then throws out the evil that's associated with it. That's what the church is an expert at. And that's why I love being Catholic, because the Catholic Church has this incredible way of funneling all that out. And so, yeah, you get the Protestants. A lot of people are like, oh, you guys are superstitious. Oh, you guys got this cultish kind of thing. Like one guy, when I was, it was on my wedding day. It was the reception.
Oof.
And he was a fundamentalist Baptist. He's like, you know that the Romans used incense and you Catholics use incense, and therefore you're just participating in a pagan cultural ritual. And I'm like, okay. I mean, like, what am I? It's my wedding day, dude. You know, so great to return to that guy 9 years later and visit his family, and just after I learned my apologetics, just to give it to him. He's like, I had no idea. You know, but it's so true. Is that fundamentalist, literalist viewpoint wants to have God in four walls that are bare white with nothing else but Jesus on his throne.
This is such a good point. And
sorry, it's so banal.
Yeah, it is. And you know, what's interesting, and I bring this up too, again, because you brought up Satan can only pervert, and I'm going to go there, is that we see today the secular world trying to downplay the significance and the importance of Christmas. We see the secular world in one way accepting it, and in another way trying to pervert it and turn it on its head. But at the same time, it wasn't the secular world first. Before them, it was the Puritans, right? And this goes back to 1647. I wrote it down here, and I'm glad that we're able to talk about this, because the Puritans were so much against celebrating anything on a day that wasn't celebrated in the Bible or wasn't on a Sunday, that they would even go as far as banning it and killing people. And I mean, this is huge. If you start reading the stories of what the Puritans did in England in the 1640s, 1650s, when they were trying to ban and shun, and it was outlawed. So Christmas was outlawed, and they weren't allowed to practice or celebrate Christmas, which has a bunch of beautiful traditions that maintain to today that came out of that. But they were, I mean, Scrooge looked like a choir boy compared to what these Puritans were willing to do to Catholics who are celebrating Christmas. And unfortunately, that has lost favor. But what's interesting is that the Reformation, the perverting of the fullness of truth, brings about the squashing of December 25th, because December 25th isn't spoken of as the actual date in the Bible. And here's another thing why Christmas is so Catholic. It's tradition that maintains that Christmas and gives us the authority that Christmas is celebrated on the 25th of December. And that's why we celebrate it, not because that date is spoken of in the Bible. Yes, there's ways in the Bible, depending on how you read Luke and Zechariah and all that, that you can discern December 25th is a likely date. But we only know that through the authority of the Catholic Church, which is awesome.
Yeah. And if you think about it, they base their existence or their understanding of Christmas on that knowledge. They're not getting away from it. You know, they actually accentuate it, even if because they celebrate it, you know, I mean, so I don't know. What you said though, makes me think, why did we pick Christmas, or why did the church identify December 25th as the date of the Nativity? And I think maybe you can help me out on this, but I think and it's kind of theological in a way too, because wasn't the Annunciation, right, March 25th? Mm-hmm. And that feast, I guess, was actually understood in the early church prior to even the Feast of Christmas.
Correct.
And so then they identified December 25th as being 9 months after that feast. And that's how we derive. Is that correct?
That's correct. And actually, it's you're right, because we celebrate, and the Christmas celebration, which we're about to jump into, and why we celebrate it, is one day is not enough. We got to do 8 days. But it was developed over time, right? Because Christmas wasn't the most important feast day. Of course, Easter was. and the resurrection of Christ, the passion, death, and resurrection of Christ was the most important feast in the church year. But actually, you're exactly right that the feast of the Annunciation was celebrated on the 25th of March, and that was more important. And that was actually what was celebrated. And in many areas, for we're talking decades and hundreds of years, oftentimes in different I guess Catholic rites, it was celebrated. Both the birth of Christ and the incarnation of Christ were celebrated on the same day. It was just kind of like, well, let's just loop it in.
Yeah, and the reason is because I remember Scott Hahn saying this years ago in a debate or in a talk with someone else. But he said, I wonder, or he said, I think that actually more important than the resurrection, perhaps, is the incarnation, the Annunciation, that whole event, because God permanently unites himself to mankind as a man, but yet remaining God. We could spend our lives investigating, praying over, researching this mystery, and it would do us great good. But I think there's a theological component to this is very powerful. Mary is there first. Like at the wedding at Cana, it says that there was a wedding at Cana of Galilee and Mary was there. And then it goes on to say, and Jesus and his apostles also attended the feast.
Right.
John is very specific that Mary was already there. It's like that with this situation where you have March 25th, Mary's there. And then she points us to the culmination, Christ's birthday. It's like that in Advent. We have December 8th, the Feast of the Immaculate Conception. We have Our Lady Guadalupe. And she is paving the way. What she's trying to do, I believe, and the church is trying to do for us, is saying, learn how to love Jesus with the heart of Mary. I pray often, like, Mary, give me the faith that you have. Give me the love with which you love Jesus. Give me the hope with which you had in Jesus. Because it is Mary's heart that leads us into this incarnational mystery. And to have the God of the universe as a little infant that you adore and worship. And literally, what is it? The Greek word is, I think it's like proskines, or something like proskiniste.
You can fool me. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, hopefully I fool everybody else. Somebody will correct us if they're much. But it really means to prostrate yourself before. So the Magi, the shepherds, they literally prostrated themselves before that little infant.
Humbled
before
themselves.
That mystery.
Yeah. Oh, it's so beautiful. And I love that we're talking about that. And I do want to talk about this celebration, but I do think it's important for us to talk about mangers and the nativity scenes in the creche, which was also of Catholic origin. We look everywhere. You're driving today here in Advent, and you're seeing all the Christmas lights going up, which I'm not knocking on, right? I mean, and I love seeing them, and I love being the festivities and building this up. I see manger scenes everywhere, nativity scenes everywhere, and Protestant neighbors, secular neighbors, just anybody having these nativity scenes as kind of an icon or a symbol of Christmas, and it is something that came from St. Francis of Assisi there in 1223, and so. Every single time you see a manger scene, what's something beautiful about this manger scene, again, and that's not the intent of this episode to be just a bunch of fun facts about our faith, although our faith is amazing and these are incredible facts, is that when he created the first nativity scene, that first manger scene, he built it out and he put straw, and his whole goal was to show how God humbled himself and what he was lacking both in the manger and in life, with just straw all around him. And he put that straw and everything like that. Miracles after miracles started occurring at this site, at this creche. People started taking the straw from the manger and putting it on women that were struggling in labor for delivery to help ease their pain and to help it be a successful delivery. Isn't that incredible? That's our faith. I mean, it's just so powerful that St. Francis of Assisi didn't create this creche and this, sorry, it's called the creche, the nativity scene. I know I keep on using that. With the thoughts of maybe the straw is going to have miracles and that could help women through labor and delivery. But, that's our faith. That's how God uses us. And praise be to God for that.
Can you describe to me and everyone, like what St. Francis really did there? Because from what I understand, it was a living nativity, right?
Right. That's what I understand as well. Yeah. And I'm not fully versed in all that. So you keep on going with what
well, I mean, that little manger that he created with the straw was between an ox and an ass, and it was in a cave. And that night, what was it? Thousands of pilgrims come to this live
all over
manger scene,
It's reenactment. Exactly.
And see, what I love about this is, okay, I think we need to kind of pause here and say, St. Francis wasn't like a guy who was posting his videos on YouTube and posting on X and trying to get attention for himself. His whole goal was to draw people to the mystery of Jesus, the incarnation. And so he did that completely from that motivation. It was not about him at all. And what we have now is we have someone who has literally changed the church and the world and the way we celebrate Christmas because of that one thing he decided to do that. And he could have been like, man, this is probably only going to get like 800 views on YouTube. I probably shouldn't do it. It's wasted time,
Yeah.
But who knows? Maybe he was thinking, maybe it'll be me and 4 of my friars, maybe we'll be kneeling at this crib for the evening, but no, God had other plans. I love it when someone has a vision and they stick to it. They don't give up on it despite the lackluster results. Because look if Francis gave up on that, we would not have that today.
Men, are you fed up with not being able to control what you eat or drink? Are you tired of never having energy to play with your children? Do you find yourself endlessly scrolling on your phone every day, even though you tell yourself to stop doing it over and over again? Are you still confused at how to pray? Well, it's time to wake up and do something about it. Stop making excuses and start taking action. And that's why I want to invite you to be a part of Exodus 90 this new year, starting on January 20th. Join over 100,000 men that have been a part of this incredible 90-day journey, myself included. Life is tough, and this program can help you take control of it or brush off the dust of distractions that have entered into your life. But you are not doing it alone. You will be in community with tens of thousands of other men. You will be guided by a step-by-step, proven, successful program, and you will engage spiritually with Christ like never before. Become the man you were born to be. Head over to exodus90.com/Catholic Gentleman or click on that link in the show notes. Find your freedom now. Yeah, it's the real loaves and fishes, isn't it? It's just this idea that God can take, if he puts something in our heart and we say yes to it, regardless of what people around us might say, we stick with it, we persevere. Yeah. And if we have that grit, right? If we have that perseverance, what can come of it? This is such a beautiful example. Billions and billions of people are aware of the manger scene, might be drawn to Christ in that brief moment where they're driving a car and they see a wooden cutout, or when they're driving their car and they see now these new inflatable ones, whatever the case is, might be drawn to Christ in that moment because St. Francis said yes. Again, without any, you're right, not even like a statistical assumption of what could happen. He just did it because he wanted to help people more intimately understand the Holy Family and, of course, the birth of Christ on this day.
My mom and dad had, and it was my mom's heirloom from probably one of her family members, but it was a little nativity with those little, I don't know if they were porcelain, but they're painted, it was very antique-y. And every year she'd put that out, and I'd always be looking at the presents and everything, but I found myself, even as a little child, kind of like almost magnetically drawn to that nativity. And I remember just looking at it for quite some time. I get lost in it for 5 to 10 minutes, and imagining it, and I had no idea what it really meant.
Yeah.
And yet I even though Christmas was a melancholic kind of time or season, a lot of times, that always brought me peace. There was something about it that always brought this warmth and this glow, even more so than the lights on the Christmas tree and the presents under the tree. That was it. And it took me to become more mature and more self-reflective to really realize that's where the peace is at.
Yeah, so true. I love the fact that you stated that, because I'm going to be honest. We haven't had a manger scene in our house for the last few years.
Whoa.
I know, because the one we had, our kids destroyed. And there's only so many, angel wings that can be repaired and stuff. And then, both finances as well as my, I just don't want one of these cheap,
No, you got to get a good one.
Exactly.
Man. Yeah.
And so
you want to honor God with it.
Exactly.
So like what I love about the nativity scene is, well, first of all, when you're studying the figures, you get lost in the mystery of it all. The Magi, the shepherds, Mary, Joseph, the suffering and the travail that led to this glorious moment, though impoverished. It's a very impoverished moment. Yet what's so beautiful is Sunday morning for us, like we wait till everybody gets up, and before gifts are open, before anything, baby Jesus, we Venite adoremus, we chant that, we sing that, and we praise him, and we kind of march over to the nativity scene and place him in that scene. And each year it's a different child, now grandchildren, who bring that baby Jesus and put him in his place in the nativity. And see, it is just like with Francis, it is those little things that we do as family that are the traditions which keep our faith alive. I was watching this on the way back. I don't watch these crappy movies that are on most time. Well, no, I don't on the airplane. But I was like looking for something. It was like a 3.5 hour flight, and I was toward the end of it. And there was this National Geographic video series on the Alaskans. It was called like Below Zero or something like that. And the whole thing with these male Alaskans who their grandfathers and everybody lived there their whole lives. And it was all about hunting and survival and trapping and fighting the elements. They were happy people. But what was beautiful was time and time again, the man would say, we pass on these traditions. We do this to teach our children what it means to be one of us, what it means to be a person of faith. They have their own faith, but we will not let our heritage die. Yeah. And I'm like, that's the way we need to be as Catholics, man.
Amen.
We shouldn't just rely on the catechism and maybe the priest to do it. In our families, we should not let our heritage die. We should create our own traditions based off of the big traditions like that, bringing Jesus to his manger and singing. And then our family's like, well, I'm going to do that with my kids, and then their kids,
Isn't this a time, this season here, where even the world accepts the reality, whether they're willing to admit it or not?
I got to tell you. So my wife and I were on date night, and we love to go to this local distillery because it's like nobody's there, right? And we can bring our own food, and a friend of ours owns it. So it's like we got the place for free, really.
Oh, terrific.
And so we're sitting there, and there's these guys up at the bar, and there's this beautiful Christmas music playing, and all this. And one of the guys says to, his two buddies, he says, man, this music makes me want to call home and tell my mom I'm sorry for everything I've ever did.
Do it. I know, that's incredible.
But see, that's that's that golden thread.
It is.
That's Jesus in all of it. We feel it. We taste it. Even though it's been so secularized, it like hits the soul at a deep level.
Oh, couldn't agree more. And it's exactly what I was getting at, was that there's this sense that man cannot live without tradition. If he does, Benedict states, something, he falls into nothingness and like debauchery or something along those lines, that man cannot live without tradition. Like, we all have tradition. And you'll hear the secularists and agnostics, or even obviously Protestants, cry out against tradition, and how, oh, no, tradition is of Catholicism, therefore it's, demonic, it's anathema and stuff. But here we are, every Christmas season, exactly what you're saying. And I have memories of my own, and every listener pause and think through all the memories of your Christmas season that made it worthwhile, that made it exciting, that made it something that you wanted to experience again. And that, in its essence, is tradition. And that is what we're able to do, and what we're able to give to our kids. Like you're saying, it's so incredible. What an honor. What a joy that we can do that.
Yeah. You make a great point there, because the argument against tradition is a double standard fallacy.
Yeah.
Because if I was to ask any secular neighbor of mine, say, Oh, what do you guys do at Christmas? Oh, on Christmas Eve, we share gifts. After that, we break out the alcohol and then we watch Buddy the Elf, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Sunday morning, we go over to grandma's house and we have her apple pie. Oh, so you have traditions. Okay, just because they're not the church's traditions, they're your traditions. So it's not that they're against tradition, they're just against holy tradition.
Traditions, exactly.
And actually, it's ironic because after you get done with a lot of those man-made traditions, there's a lack of peace. But when you adhere to the holy traditions, all those man-made traditions take on a new value. It's just so beautiful. So when you're getting together with grandma, when you're going to Christmas Eve Mass and maybe open up a couple gifts afterwards, man, it just has this warmth and this glow. And it doesn't matter if you get what you want. There's so much love because Christ is in all of that.
So true. Yeah, man, exactly. It is. And it's depressing if not. And so I think this is great. Here we are. Okay, we are celebrating. This is time for celebration. And now you understand, everybody, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that Christmas is Catholic, whether it doesn't matter what anybody's thinking or what they're trying to do. They're falling into it unintentionally, that it is a Catholic holiday tradition, faith. And so now let's look to the church then and say, okay, so what does the church say when it comes to how to celebrate Catholic rightly? And I'd just like to lead with the fact that one day isn't enough. It's the only other on the new calendar. I know the traditional calendar has 3 octaves, but this is the only other octave, 8-day celebration on the church's calendar, Easter being the other one, and Easter being a solemnity throughout the whole 8 days. But I don't want to talk about all those differences. But basically, the church is telling us, and you can hear this in the daily office, the readings every day, for Christmas. You can see it in the feast days that are going, that like we are called to live this solemnity. And solemnity is not like, oh, solemn, right? It's this joy beyond joy. It's this high feast, exactly, where we are called to celebrate, to break open the wine, mulled if that's your thing this winter. We're called to break it and to celebrate the birth of Christ with the family, the loved ones, with the stuff we're doing, not for one day, not for 2 days, not for 3 days, but for 8 days. We are called to celebrate this. And I'll pause right there, and I'm just going to throw that 8 days to you, Devin, because I've got other thoughts about additional things. So,
well, no, you're on a roll. I think it's great. And I was just going to ask you, I was like, hey, bring out the significance of the octave, bring out the significance of the 8 days, and share that with us, because and like you said, the old calendar, there was the Easter octave, there was a Christmas octave, and there was Pentecost octave. But now we have the Christmas octave and Easter octave. What's the importance of 8? Why? Yeah. I've got my thoughts on that.
Signifies perfection, right? Mm-hmm. It is. It's 8 days because Christ was resurrected on the 8th day. And so that is the new day. That's the new life. That's what we are called to do. And so we see that 8, infinity, exactly. And so thank you for connecting that as well. Is that this is what we're called to do. And you hear it described in different ways. Like it's basically one big day, right? It's all 8 days. I don't know how many hours that is, but it's all 8 days. It's just one day in the church's calendar. It's that big. It's that magnificent. It is the wedding feast that lasts for 8 full days, the day of perfection, the day of Christ's resurrection. And so there it is. That's why 8 is so important.
It begs the question, like, how do you amp it up on those 8 days? And I think, in design, I was a commercial artist, graphic design brand guy, and ran my own business for years. And we had kind of this little adage, or, saying that if everything is emphasized, let's say you're doing a book cover, nothing is emphasized.
Nothing's emphasized.
And so if you're emphasizing all this stuff during Advent, and you're partying and you're drinking and you're eating all the goodies and maybe even exchanging gifts prior to that, and you're emphasizing it, and then when you get to Christmas, man, those 8 days, they're hollow. They feel dead. And especially because no one else is celebrating, right? The world isn't celebrating. You're like, oh man, I need to turn the new year and make my resolution to lose this 40 pounds that I put on over Advent. It's like,
that's right.
Okay, what a downer, man. It's like, so I think it'd be great to tease out, like, what is it? How do we heighten this celebration for those 8 days? And help me out here, but Christmas is the high day, but then the 8th day is also the high day, right?
Correct.
Okay?
Exactly. Yep.
And then the days in the middle are high feasts, but they're just not as, so we really need to crank it out on those bookend days.
Exactly.
Right?
And so that's exactly right. And that where my brain went in a number of different directions. And so before we talk about hyping it up, let's talk about hyping it up, but let's talk about the preparation, to hyping it up, right? So we did an episode a while back on feasting and fasting, right? And I use this term, I think I coined this term, maybe I didn't, but I call them micro feasts, which is what we do every single day when we break open a beer every day, or we have a glass of wine every day, or we have sugar, sweets, like every single day, is that basically you are deadening and lessening the joy of the feast when that comes, the joy of the celebration when that comes, because it's nothing new. And so within that episode, we talked a lot about how one of the greatest ways to experience feasting is to fast, or is to abstain prior to that feast, which is Advent, is a season here. I got to experience this in a very intimate and unique way last night. I'm so blessed that I have this incredible wife of mine that she was the one who really called it out, is that our kids had their winter concert last night on the Feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe. And so it's the Feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe. We decide on the way home that we're going to, and it's late. Our dinner is normally around 5:30, 6 o'clock in our house. And we're driving home at around 8. And our kids haven't really had a snack before it, but they haven't. And we picked up McDonald's on the way home, right? And so we picked up McDonald's and we got home, and two things. One, I didn't let them all choose their own meals. I just said, we're all doing chicken nuggets and French fries. Like, that's it. We're simplifying it. It's late. Chicken nuggets and French fries. Not a single complaint. Not a complaint at all. The kids didn't whine. They were like overjoyed that they get McDonald's. They weren't expecting it. This is exciting. There was this joy.
The element of surprise with kids from a father-mother perspective is the key.
Yeah. Well, we experienced it. And then when they ate it, no one was complaining. They were so excited that they got chicken nuggets and French fries. They didn't get their chicken sandwiches or Big Macs or whatever else they would, normally select. But also they loved it, and they were all eating it. And there was like a certain joy around the dinner table when we got home, because they were hungry. They had actually not only fasted, but they were hungry, and they were delighted in what they were able to experience. So it was literally.
So this is the point. I understand. So the fasting allows the micro feasting to be celebratory. Got it.
To be celebratory, like to be even more joyful.
That's great.
And that's Advent. We talked about it in our last episode, where we talked about how you have to remove yourself from the distractions of the world during Advent time. That's one of the things we discussed. And what does that do when you spend all of Advent removing yourself from the distractions of the world? You get to actually really experience a feast on Christmas.
Just with whatever time is left before the big feast here, before these 8 days, give it your best. God will receive it. Up your periods of silence. Just give him that commitment. No promises like, Lord, I'm going to continue this, after such and such a day. Just do it. Do it. And then curb back your eating. Don't drink. Try to give all of that up. Try to go into austere mode for whatever time is left. And I guarantee you, when that celebration comes, those 8 days, you're going to savor it.
Yeah. You're going to be struggling to contain it, and that desire, and that exactly. I love it. And
Christmas Eve from sex,
Exactly.
No, I'm just kidding.
Everything that's going to help you. We talk about the fullness of man here, and so I was gonna derailed. And so the one thing that I just wanted to Christmas Eve was generally a day of fasting, right? It was traditionally a day of fasting. You fasted all the way up until midnight mass, or till the mass on Christmas Eve, right? Because the celebration, which is we're building up and it's here, and so you fast and then you experience that feast. I think it's so incredibly important. But the church, in her infinite wisdom, understands that we're men and that we struggle. And so what do we have on the new calendar? We have the solemnity of Mary, Mother of God on January 1st, right? That celebration is hitting us on January 1st. We have Christmas on the 25th. And 8 days later, we have Mary, Mother of God. Used to be the circumcision of Christ, but it was all the 8th day octave where you were supposed to celebrate extraordinary. And so, but it's not done there, right? Originally on the traditional calendar, I'll just go right for it. It was over 40 days. It went all the way till February 2nd. We should do this. Like, it is this important. I mean, all the way up till it's Christmastide, right? That's Christmastide is the period all the way to February 2nd. Now, we can have arguments about whether you can let go of your Christmas tree on January 7th or you want to see the wilting and dead brown leaves until February 2nd, which some people do, and good for them. But the Christmastide, the Christmas season goes all the way up to Michaelmas, goes all the way up to Candlemas there on February 2nd. And that is the celebration. And that's how big it is in the church's calendar, in the church's year, is that we are called to celebrate. Now, I'm not suggesting that you spend 40 days binging and just doing whatever you want. Terrible. That's not what I'm suggesting at all. It would be horrible. Exactly. But just to tell you, the two things that I just brought up here is that there's those solemnities, there's a high feast days on the 25th and on the 1st, right? Where we are supposed to be intentional. You are supposed to pull out the cake. You are supposed to do something intentionally on these days to show to show the rest of the world how Catholics celebrate and what is so important. I don't know anybody listening who works on January 1st, but take it off, we do this on feast days throughout the year. For those of our kids who are in school, is on solemnities on December 8th, for instance. If it falls during a school day, we'll take them out of school. Like, we're going to celebrate, and we want this to be the essence of our lives, the very movement, because guess what? I'm wrong all the time, but the church is not. No. And so when we lean to the church, I know, right? I waited 40 some minutes into the episode to admit that. For the, exactly. Because it just dropped. Everybody, we just lost the rest of our listeners. But anyways, you get what I'm saying. And what an exciting celebration that we should be living. And the church not only emphasizes this, but she also gives us the way. She also lays forth the way.
Yeah, I love it. Sing. Let what St. Augustine says, he who sings prays twice.
Prays twice, yeah.
Sing. Over those 8 days, sing. Sing Christmas carols with your family. Even if you're tone deaf and you have a terrible voice, sing. Get out the best china or whatever you have, decorate the table. Just go all out. Have fun. But keep in mind, though, if this is the key with all of life, really, when it's to draw attention to ourselves or to bring it back about us or what we're trying to get out of it, it ends up becoming a losing battle. We never have that true sense of joy. But if we're doing it all to bring glory to Christ and what he's done for us, that's when it takes on incredible value, joy, meaning. I remember, was it last Christmas or the Christmas before? I was just getting ready to lead prayer for my family, extended family, at the dinner table. And I had this thought, I saw, how you do this in your imagination. I saw little baby Jesus in the manger. And then I saw Mary, how this is, it's imagination, but kissing his little feet.
Yeah.
And then I just had this visual of the nails just piercing those little baby feet. And it was like, wow, you are amazing. You're an amazing God. That you come down to our level strictly for the purpose of offering yourself for us.
Yeah.
Man, I was just so moved.
Yeah. No, it's so powerful. And it's
but if we have that focus, we turn it back to him, that's where the thankfulness, the gratitude, the joy of him being one of us permanently, of him presenting us permanently to the Father, bearing the marks of our sin in his hand, saying, see, Father, look, as Hebrews 7:25 is all about, see, Father, look. And he makes intercession for us that we can be reconciled to the Father. And the Father isn't like, oh, I hate those guys. He's like, yes. And he embraces us. And then we have Mary and Joseph in this, who suffered so much just to bring about this great mystery of Christ's incarnation. And they gave up everything for him. And we just have so much to be thankful for. And then you look at your life and you're like, or my life, I go, man, I've got it so easy. I've got so much. He's given me so much. How can't I give to others this season? I think that's another thing is from the gratitude of what Christ has done, we really need to tap into that so that we can be generous during this season.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I couldn't agree more. And I think that this is so important. I want to talk about a couple of things that you just brought up, because we're talking about celebration as Catholics and during Christmas season, and we've got that which the church lays forth, right? And we're doing this great interweaving of personal devotions and traditional practices and what the church lays forth, right? And so we've got the fact that Christmas is in its utmost Catholic, the fact that 8 days is necessary to appropriately experience this, and actually 40 days is really more appropriate to experience the whole Christmas season. The fact that Advent and the build up to it is a season of reparation, a season of repentance and self-reflection and of abstinence. And that's so important. And I want to add something to it, weaving in some personal devotions that can hit today. Think about giving up TV. Think about giving up for this last week here. Control your imagination, right? Because when I'm hearing you talk, Devin, those things occur to people that are controlling their imagination, that are limiting the impulses and the images and everything that's flying, that they're allowing in, and so that they're open to grace, so that they're open to these sort of things. Because if we are subdued and overwhelmed and allowing to exist in the noises of the world, we're not going to be able to hear the voice. We're not going to be able to see Christ. And so I encourage our listeners, I just wasn't planning on saying that until I hear you talking. But the church in her goodness also lays forth these little feast days throughout the octave, right? Where we've got St. Stephen, the first martyr. We've got the Feast of the Holy Innocents, those martyrs. Why are we celebrating martyr? John the Evangelist, right? Which is the white martyr, right? And why are we celebrating these? Because they all point us to the eternal and everlasting reward, the goal and the purpose of life. Yes, Devin.
By means of the cross.
By means of the cross.
Stephen, Stephanos, it's very interesting. In the Greek, Stephanos actually is the word they use for crown. And the Stephanos crown was symbolized joy and victory. So it's very interesting that Stephen, the first martyr, he receives the crown of victory and joy the day after Christmas.
That's right.
So what is the church saying? The church is saying that this feast of Christmas, the incarnation, is at the service of the cross, which is at the service of imparting the crown that Jesus has to us.
Yeah.
And that's what Stephen symbolizes. He represents each and every one of us who, if we're willing to endure till the end, he shall be saved, as Matthew tells us. We receive that Stephanos, that crown of joy and victory.
I love it. We don't lose sight of the victory of Christ, even in Christmas, right? We're not losing sight of it. And that was the thing we talked about on the Advent episode, was that we're not just preparing for this like symbolic coming of baby Jesus, right? Yeah. We are preparing for the second coming of Christ. We are preparing for that entrance into heaven. We are not losing sight of his passion and death and resurrection that we are experiencing, and this crown of victory that we are all pursuing. Love it. I think it's spot on. And it's exactly what we are called to do. And it's exactly celebrating rightly. It's exactly why I'm so grateful and so blessed that I am Catholic.
There's this beautiful, I can't remember what the name of the group is, something 8 or Anonymous 8 maybe, but they have this beautiful chant melody of the Holy Innocence. It gives me goosebumps every time I hear it. It is so heavenly and otherworld, but has that melancholic kind of like feel to it. But man, it just hits the soul. You're like realizing this deal with Jesus becoming one of us cost everything.
So true.
It cost everything. And that, just meditating on that with that song is extremely powerful.
Amen. And if you're able to find it, we'll drop it in the show notes. We'll try and make a note of that. I think that's such a good point. So for the end here in our wonderful, I've been enjoying this conversation, is what should we be doing? And what should we not be doing here to celebrate rightly? And so there's just a couple things that we haven't touched on that I want to talk about what we should be doing. I do want to overemphasize hymn and singing. I think that is absolutely, we're not just doing Auld Lang Syne on December 31st to like ring in the new year. We are actually singing devout Catholic Christmas here, carols and singing God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen. You heard me singing it in such, lustrous tones earlier, and we should be doing that. We should be singing that as a family. Our kids love it. And we should be uplifting that. And I think that's so necessary. We should be intentional about each of these feast days. So you've got a week before Christmas. It is so important. What are you going to do on each of these feast days to start living it out? If you don't have any ideas, Google it, right? There are tons of different websites, Catholic websites, wonderful individuals that put forth all of these different ideas of ways that you can better bring in the Christmas season and that you can better live and enter into it. And I think it's so important, but I want to leave our listeners with, you have to be intentional, because more years than I can possibly count, am unintentional, or I'm intentional the morning of, and that is a little bit too late. We need to be intentional beforehand, before the day arrives. And so what are you going to do for the Feast of Mary, Mother of God? What are you going to do for Christmas? What are you going to do for St. Stephen's feast day? St. Stephen is my patron. And so we always celebrate him as well. And then one other thing that I want to talk about is the Feast of Epiphany, right, on January 6th, the 12 days of Christmas here. She didn't really talk on, but find a church that blesses Epiphany chalk and go around and bless your home with your family on the Feast of Epiphany. And so if you've never heard that before, there's a great, incredible tradition in the church where you go around to each of the entryways within your home and you inscribe the inscription 20 in case the year plus CMB, right? And so this year is going to be 2025, so you're going to do 20, you're going to do a cross or a plus sign of C, a plus sign of M, a plus sign of B, and a plus sign of 25, more appropriately across.
And what the C, the B, the M
stand for is the three magi, or the three wise men. Also not something in Scripture. We know their names because of church tradition. And so that's Caspar, Melchior, and Balthazar. And so bringing those up. I've also heard the Latin phrase, Christus Mansionem, something with a B, Benedictus or Benedict, something or other. That's not what I ever learned growing up when we were doing it, but I've heard other people talk about may Christ bless this house, right, which is the Latin for may Christ bless this house, but that's not what I grew up with. But the point is that you're, as for me and my home, we will serve the Lord, and you are making a public announcement of it. Every single person that walks in, it's fun. It's so fun because the Catholics walk into our home and they know it, and they're like, oh, they're Catholic. They didn't know where we lived, and they walk up and there's the statues, or there's
the other people are like, well, don't you own a chalkboard?
Exactly. What are you doing? Exactly. What a great opportunity to evangelize, though. I think that's what we're getting at, because Catholics are the only ones in the world that celebrate these feasts correctly and rightly. And this is this great opportunity. And the church has just said, here are all the tools that you need to engage culture. And that is what we are able to do with joy and with that sense of belonging and with that sense of peace and right order and joy.
Yeah, as the man of your house, or as being me, being the man of my house, I think that try to identify one tradition, very simple perhaps, something that you can carry on without great difficulty that you can do every Christmas season. Amen. Just like that one. That one's a good one, or, standing around having some eggnog and singing Christmas carols, say on Wednesday of the octave or something, just identify what that tradition is and then do it. Regardless if you feel like a fool, your family's going to love it. Eventually down the line, they're going to want to repeat it. And those are going to be such warm memories. Bring baby Jesus, nativity, whatever it is, but identify as the man, the spiritual leader of your home, because you are the spiritual leader. You're the priest of your family. And if you don't do it, really, no one else will. You have the authority. So identify a tradition or two and just implement it. Tell your wife, hey, what do you think about this? And she's can probably turn it up. She'll probably turn up the heat and make it really awesome, you know?
I agreed. And I think it's not about what you feel. It's not about what are the neighbors going to think? Because if it is, take that to prayer, right? Because that is absolutely not the voice of God. And that is not a leader in his family. And so I completely agree. And actually, that was a perfect entrance or segue into what should we not do? Well, we already heard one. You should not be the one that throws out their Christmas tree on the 26th or 27th that it's down there on your street corner. You should
not play Santa Baby.
You should not play Santa Baby. This is exactly right. There are definite things. You should not do Wham's this Christmas. This is not one that should be played.
Man. Last Christmas, I gave you my heart. Oh, man. It couldn't be more depressing.
I know. It's so, and you hear it at every mall and every store, everywhere. It's so awful. And so, don't turn off your Christmas lights. Put up your Christmas lights. If you haven't put up Christmas lights, put them up. And I'm not, again, we've got some Christmas lights already starting to come up in my house and here in Advent, but put them up and keep them on.
And if you live up north, make sure your kids and your wife get you some really good gloves.
There you go. Exactly
so you can do it, you know? Because it's cold up here.
Exactly. And so keep them up and keep them on. And that's so important. You know, be the awkward one on the street that's like all the way up until the 6th, you know, as your lights are on, right? And we're living in society, right? So if you go all the way to February 2nd, you might be kind of like awkward now. The weirdo. Now that
you're wearing the Santa hat, you know.
So the questions are like, do they ever take them down, or do they need to get a new Christmas tree? Are they just going to celebrate it all year round? And so, and then I would say, don't ignore the feast days and figure out what you're going to do and celebrate with your family. So those are just some of the things that I dropped in there. Anything, Devin, that you think I missed on what not to do?
Be generous. Find a family, someone who's in need, or maybe a charitable organization which you really love what they stand for. And just give from the heart, and don't tell people, you know, just do it. We have this family. So in our old neighborhood had a lot of rentals and people who were like well below the poverty level, well below. And this family, they have the son who's older. He's an adult, but he's special, you know, and I remember just kind of like I'd walk to the church to pray, and I'd walk by their house, and I end up getting in some conversations with her. And I realized they're dirt poor, super dirt poor. And I remember asking my wife, what could we do for them? And then it became this massive tradition. We would bring turkey, and we bring, you know, groceries and dishes. And it literally took forever to get everything out of the van, and gift cards, and just lavishly bless them. And it became, so it felt, I didn't realize what was going to happen. You know, I just was hoping that they would receive it. They would be happy. But the warmth, I mean, like the love that it gave us as a family, it was so tremendous. And now every year we still get a Christmas card from them, 3 weeks before Christmas. Like, hey, we're still out here. You know, are you going to come by this year? You know, so it doesn't say anything in the card except, you know, they sign their name. So it's like hint, hint, you know, but it's such a good practice because it allows us to get in touch with poverty. It allows us to get in touch with pain and those who are less. It's so shallow when we don't do that. You know, something like that, you know?
Yeah, agreed. Call yourself to more. What a great putting on the new man challenge.
And we should also point out that during this Christmas season, we actually kind of celebrate two types of people. We celebrate a lot of people, the family, parents, mom and dad, Mary and Joseph, but we also celebrate the shepherds, who were the rejected ones. They smelled like filth. They were rejected. They were dirty. And, you know, shepherds, there was a lot of bad kind of jokes about shepherds. Let's just say that. And then you have the magi, the rich, the stargazers, the ones who can travel forever and have lavish gifts. All of them kneel down at the poverty of the creche. You know, they kneel down before Jesus, and he accepts all of them. And I love what it says about the Magi. It says that, and they found, when they walked in the house, they found the child with his mother. That's how we will find Jesus, with his mother. She leads us to him. She teaches us how to adore him, and he teaches us how to love her. And that's when the warmth and the joy is full.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's so exciting. And that's the blessings that we have as Catholics and that we can give to others. It can be something as simple as wishing others a Merry Christmas throughout the Christmas season. You know, I had a story of Walmart last year. I was checking out and the lady was checking me out. It was, I don't know, a few days. I can't remember.
She was checking you out? You need to talk to your wife about that.
I know, exactly. It was hardly that form. And I wished her a Merry Christmas at the very end. And she looked at me, she goes, "Oh, Christmas is done, honey. We're looking at the New Year's," or something like that. And I responded to her, I said, "Actually, it's not." And I actually talked. And at the end of it, she goes, "Well, I did not know that. Thank you so much." And so, there was a really good, a good moment. You also have to make sure that you're not letting your emotions get charged, right? If I looked at her and I'd be like, "Oh, you're wrong," and I was like, "There's no joy in my heart." Exactly. So do it understanding that so few people know. And anyways, Devin, I'm blessed. Anything you'd like to end with? I'm just so grateful for this conversation.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to all our listeners. Thank you so very much. And as we end each of our episodes,
be a man, be a saint.